Welcome to Big Blend Radio, where we celebrate variety and how it adds spice to quality of life. Hey, everybody, you know we love our second Wednesday show with Books Forward. So if you're an author, check them out at booksforward.com. But we are excited to have acclaimed author Evette Davis join us here today. Her urban fantasy novel is coming out in September through SparkPress and September 2024. And it is a novel that's set in San Francisco. In fact, I think it's like the perfect setting. And the title is The Others. We like that. You can go to her website, EvetteDavis.com, if you're listening before the book is out. Pre-orders are always welcome for authors. And I want to make sure it's Evette with an E, and the link is in the show notes. So welcome, Evette. How are you?
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm doing very well today. Thanks.
So this is exciting. The Others. That's such a good title. You're like, what do you mean the others? It's already got you in that, like, what? So this is a trilogy, the first book of a trilogy. You want to give us kind of an overview of the trilogy?
So the Others is the debut story of a secret society of supernatural beings that work behind the scenes to rig elections, to tamp down on fascism and nationalism and all sorts of things. And a lot of people have said, like, what? Like, how did you come up with that idea? And the truth is that I had actually been thinking about this for a long while, far before what we see today on the national landscape. But I won't say I'm sorry that it fits so nicely into today's
It's good timing.
Yeah.
And before November, right? So that's good.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like this supernatural part of it, because I think even in the writing, I'm at the beginning of it, you're tapping into things we kind of know. We have other talents and
Right.
other senses that human beings just haven't quite gotten to understand ourselves yet. And I think you're tapping right into it right at the beginning. That there's other things that we can do, and we just don't know quite what they are.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'll just, if you'll indulge me, I'll tell you the Others started off as a play. And I guess I would say if I had been a halfway decent playwright, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But my other day job is that I help co-run a public relations government affairs consulting firm. And so the issue of women and power and politics and dynamics has long been on my mind. And I had this idea for a play where a very successful political consultant would see, like, out of the corner of her eye, an ancient female warrior who would sort of like be off stage and would coach her on how to become a leader. Because I think women are constantly struggling with, what does it mean to be powerful, or what does it mean to be a leader? How do we manifest our power and our agency when that doesn't always come off well? Men can be brilliant and tactical and strong, but women often get punished for that. So I tried writing that play. It didn't work. But Olivia, the main character, stuck with me, this San Francisco-based political consultant who's sort of down on her luck. And The Others involves her discovering her spirit guide, this woman named Elsa, who lures her into the council and this world of the others. And so even though this book is an adventure and a kind of it's a thrilling adventure into the supernatural world of San Francisco, it's also a long-running commentary on what does it mean to be a woman leader and how do we figure that out. And I think our sixth sense and our intuition is a part of that, right? To listen to the things that our body might be telling us, but we sort of turn it off because it doesn't fit into a neat bucket for information we're supposed to take seriously.
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, now you're going to have to be on a women's Making History podcast channel with this interview too, because it's true. Well, yeah, because we celebrate women of the past, the present, and the future. Because we have to look at our young girls going out there in the world, and we need to support each other. I always feel like and when we get into these power positions, we can actually hurt each other instead of raise each other up, and that kind of sucks. So I think it's important to have books, and I think novels, like movies, are a really good way. Storytelling helps to sort things out, and because it connects with the reader in a way of like, you need to do this or you need to do that. It takes that away because nobody wants to be told what to do. So I think this is a really good way to kind of tap into it, literally.
I agree. And I think the other thing about science fiction and fantasy, which is so helpful to follow up on what you were just saying, is that you can bend time, you can go back in history, you can do all these things that allow you to have these cogent discussions about history and behavior, and talk about them in ways that maybe aren't as direct or confrontational as you might in more current, straight up fiction, or, literary fiction, which sometimes is very painful and difficult to read. And not everybody wants to absorb life's lessons in that way, right? But if you take somebody and throw them, make them 200 years old, they can lecture you for a long time about foibles of human behavior. So
yeah, and time travel is always cool, because you've got time walkers. Tell them about time walkers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have what it takes to do time travel yet in writing. I have to work my way up to that. It's such a great skill because you're going backwards and forwards. But Elsa is a time walker. I don't want to give this spoiler away, but she does something in her life that forces her to sort of walk through time doing penance. And so what I mean is that she can go from one time period to another, walk through it, take what she needs, and then come back. And, the nice thing about supernatural science fiction fantasy writing is you can give people whatever skills you want. It's
exactly.
My vampires can be out in daylight. They drink a little, they eat a little, they have a sort of a predilection for Jack Daniels, which is a bit of a tip of a hat to my Southern roots. But what I like about Elsa is that, she is perplexed by modern society, because she comes from a time when women were actually quite badass, and they rode horses and swung swords and protected people. And people
like Boudica.
Yeah, and they exactly like
everybody has a different name of way to pronounce her, but there's a really good independent film on her right now, documentary. But anyway, go ahead.
No, that was an inspiration for my play and an inspiration for my characters. If you can't see my office, but I have like a library of banshees and sirens and women, leaders and poisonous plants, all sorts of things. But so she's perplexed by what is going on, with modern women, that they don't advocate for themselves. And so she's a real hoot. And over time, you get to know a little bit more about her. And I think
she's a little badass too, the way her personality is. She's feisty, a little fire.
I think she deserves her own novel one day. We'll have to work on that.
Does that happen with characters? I mean, you're saying, this is a trilogy and these characters, it's characters are everything, right? And you can play with plots, but a character is a character, and that's what people buy into. So with this, I mean, have you written all 3 books, or?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So the whole, all right. So you're ready to roll, man. So these characters, I mean, do they talk to you? I mean, tell us a little bit about these characters and where you get them from. I mean, you're in San Francisco, and I mean, that's a perfect city for this. It's perfect.
Yeah. So I've lived in San Francisco. I wasn't born and raised here. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but I've lived in San Francisco for more than, half my adult life. So I consider it to be my home, and I'm pretty sensitive to the doom loop narrative and, all the things that people love to say. But the fact is that this is one of the best cities in the world, and it's full of interesting people and characters and environmental, wonders like our fog. And it's really inspiring. I actually live just a few blocks away from Golden Gate Park. I can walk into the park every day. And I live about a mile from the beach. So the fog is a constant companion for us. And I've seen it do all sorts of things. I was just at the beach up north, and it was perfectly sunny. And then all of a sudden the fog started to wind its way around, just hugging the coastline, and was just sitting on top of the Golden Gate Bridge, but nowhere else. So it is a kind of a mythical thing. But where do these characters come from? I don't know. It's a lot of my imagination, and I think it's a lot of who I want to talk to and who I want to be around. Maybe when it started, I have a thing for red-haired guys. I think I gave William, red hair and pale skin, even though he doesn't look anything like my husband. Don't tell him I told you this. But I don't know. This merry band of people came together. Olivia and Elsa and her best friend Lily, who's a librarian. True disclosure, I'm a very big supporter of public libraries, and one of my good friends was actually a librarian in San Francisco and is now the head of the library in San Jose. William and Joseph, I don't know. I mean, I had to make a yin and a yang and a dark and a light. And so I think in some ways, Joseph, reminds me of, a little bit of Joseph Fiennes from Shakespeare in Love, who I always thought was kind of a good, insouciant character. And then there's other characters, there's a tension between Olivia and the leader of the council, who there again, I don't want to spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
there's things going on. And so, I tried to imagine, what kind of characters would tell this story really well? What are their secrets? The second book will be out in March of 2025, so you don't have to wait very long.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the third book will probably be out maybe in September of next year. So it'll happen pretty quickly. There's a whole evolution that's taking place, I think, for Olivia, the main character, in terms of who she is and how she's going to view her responsibilities and her life moving forward. And then there's a whole evolution of things going on with the other characters that are going on. But the main thing is, a lot of death-defying adventure, history, and, kind of, dangerous situations that Olivia has to get herself out of. And along the way, you hope she sort of learns a lesson, or, about herself or about other people.
Well, it's interesting too, because you're writing 3 books, like you've written them, but 3 books versus 1 novel, which you've written 48 states, right?
Yeah.
What's that like? How do you know where to, I mean, yeah, it's like a Netflix series.
Right.
Well, it would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears, honestly.
It's like, do it.
48 States it's interesting. I was in the middle of writing the trilogy when, somebody asked me to submit some pages, and they didn't like what I was doing with this trilogy. So they asked me to submit something else, an agent. And that book was 48 States. And the agent ultimately didn't want to publish the story. I self-published it through a printing imprint that I have. But it was a very different experience. I didn't see the story going beyond what was sort of contained in the outline. And that book, 48 States, focuses on another woman who is a truck driver in a mythical fracking territory in the United States. She has to drive a truck to make money to bring home to her family. She's a war veteran, and she also is struggling to understand, how to be a mother, how to be a loving person after having been a veteran, and living in this very hard bitten, tough place. Her husband has committed suicide, and she has to find her way back to her humanity. And she's paired up with somebody who, sneaks into this territory to look for something and needs her help. And so the two of them have to figure out how to save each other's lives and also learn how to trust each other. But there was something about that story that when it was done. Not so with this. It was like Olivia, I just didn't know how to contain it all in one book. And it just kept going. And one thing I'll say is the third book is about Olivia having to elect a woman president, and what that does to, the forces of dark and light and good and evil. And, that's very much obviously modeled after what happened to Hillary Clinton and Trump in that past election. But, suffice to say, the notion of electing a woman president is enough to create a rift in the light, the dark light. Well, for some people, yeah, right. So.
I mean, it's like, or like elect a Black president. Now, you know what I mean? Anything different from the norm creates a rift, because people don't like change. That's the thing too. So it's like your characters are, walking between they're in between 2 different worlds. And yet it's kind of like your body could, your feet could be here, but your body there. Like it's literally that way too. It's not just, all in your mind, which is cool. And that's why I think San Francisco, like the fog, when you're talking about that in the beginning of your book, you were talking about, I was like, oh, this is cool. You've got like the fog being a snake, and, it's kind of cool, to kind of get that eerie vibe. And it's what I like about Southern fiction. It always has this air of mysticism, like, it could be a nice historical novel with, some war, blood and guts or whatever. And then all of a sudden something absolutely bizarre will happen, and that's accepted in Southern fiction. It's not even fantasy, or it is Southern fiction.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you saw recently, there was a movie that just came out about Flannery O'Connor, and that whole Southern Gothic lifestyle was sort of on full display. If you haven't caught it, I highly recommend it. But I was born in California, but my mother's side of the family is from Tennessee, so I have a little bit of that Southern gene in me, I think, which is why I gave William, a Civil War background. And I was just intrigued by the notion of, where vampires get turned, how they become vampires, where they are in their lives. And, vampires are always, not always, but often, especially you think about Vampire Lestat with, Revere, those books. But they're all like insouciant, lazy plantation owners or like decadent, people. They're always sort of not watching what they're doing when they get caught up and turned, and here are these people. One was a member of the resistance in World War II. One was a soldier in the Civil War. So like, how does that change your feelings about being immortal and what your responsibilities are to the world? And I don't know, I really like playing with those questions of humanity and what you do with your time, whether
because how do we know it doesn't happen?
That's
We
right. We
don't.
don't. Yeah.
That
I like
that's
you.
why
I'm
I
sending
like
all my books to you.
I know. Well, that's the thing to me. I want like, and I think sci-fi is really great because, well, I've got this new fascination. It's actually not too new, but it's growing. It's weird. These utopian societies, and I know our listeners are going to go like, "Oh God, she's doing it again." But so we found them. We find them as we travel because we travel full time, documenting parks, public lands, and you stumble on what was a utopian society, and it all kind of happens in different places. There was one in Louisiana. We just stumbled on one in Indiana called New Harmony. It was a religious thing, and then it was the utopian thing, and none of it works, right? So it's kind of like pre-commune. So there was Louisiana, then there's Greeley, Colorado,
Wow.
all of these areas where people went in and people would pay to help set up the community, right? They go in and they live by these, clean, it's kind of Quaker-like almost, clean,
Oh,
happy communities, everyone's education. The one, a New Lano community in Louisiana, the women had more rights than women in the country.
oh,
So this, and
interesting.
they were making their own wine, so I thought that was pretty cool.
I,
And they have a whole museum to this, the New Lano colony. So it's
oh,
like this is it's wild, and they're in the middle of this timber zone, and there's a Gothic hanging jail around the corner where they did hang people. Anyways, that's
wow. Oh,
all.
you have
That's
to send me the link to that because I have a new series I'm gonna do after this trilogy is done, where some of the characters from the others and the council are going to start their own magical detective agency, and they're going to look for missing or stolen, dangerous cursed magical objects, and that you can see how like something from that, one of those civilizations might be a fun thing to turn up again in the general population, right?
well, this is what's so weird about it. It's like, aren't we? And then here we come in with our states and all of that stuff. What was going on that turned everybody in this era into we want these utopian societies? So I need to find an expert on this.
Sure.
But and one guy was actually running for president from LA, Los Angeles, and went to Louisiana. So anyway, it's the whole thing is weird, but it's it seems that that's what sci-fi kind of goes with is we're creating societies. We're
Sure.
constantly going, what is a better society? There's something because we're always, the Lord of the Rings, the Lord of the Flies, all of this stuff is all kind of
Right.
who's lording over who.
Yeah.
We want to make it better, but humanity always kind of rears its head and stays human, but we're not really. But sci-fi allows us to go like maybe in this world it's not that way.
Sure.
Why can't we have paradise? And then religion comes in and messes with everything.
Right.
And
Well,
then we have cults.
I think it's about power too. I think it's about power dynamics, because utopia is often about removing power from one place and putting it in another. Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, one ring to bind them all. And, so, no, I mean, I think these are age old questions that we keep asking ourselves over and over again. I mean, I just watched an American Experience on PBS about the rise of a Nazi movement in the United States pre Pearl Harbor, but they, just as you described, they had summer camps all over the United States. They had a massive housing complex in New Jersey, or excuse me, Long Island. And there were hundreds of thousands of people who were members of this, and they were moving towards supporting Lindbergh. And then Pearl Harbor happened, and it kind of canceled out what was happening. But you've got to ask yourself, like, why did 200,000 people decide that joining the Nazi Party was like the best way to move forward with democracy in the United States, right? You don't have to answer that question, but I think it falls into what you're talking about, which is this theory that there's always another way to do it. We have billionaires up here in Northern California that have been secretly buying up land, and they're trying to make their own version of a utopian society. So you'll have to keep an eye on that and see
Oh
what you do
God,
about.
don't start me. Well, no, now the Nazi thing, don't start me on that because we have some weird family history and we're researching now because we think that, well, through all this, we found out there's a Nazi camp in the Hollywood Hills that was there called
Yeah,
Murphy's Ranch.
I'm sure.
And so like we think our relatives were part of, we're not Nazis, y'all. Just gonna say that right now. And we've been driving through the South. Can you tell? And but we also heard this story, which I don't know if it's an urban legend or not, but the military after World War II, because there was all these Nazi encampments, right? The military hired the mafia to go after the Nazis and kill them
Why
in
not?
LA.
That sounds
But
great.
and so I'm like, dude, that's cool. Because they say my great grandfather was found in the street with his chest burned off.
Whoa,
Whoa.
that's
That's
crazy.
and
That
I'm
makes me
going,
think
that
of
sounds
Charles
mafia.
Manson. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
me think of Charles Manson too, and his crazy ranch out in Chatsworth or whatever. So, well, I want to know more about that. That sounds like a good novel in the
Well, and then the
making.
whole thing about him taking acid with the CIA. That's
Yeah,
a whole other weird thing, man.
that is weird.
Well, basically, so as you're writing all this, it's like, where do you put the line of extreme? Like, you know what I mean? That's the thing, because
Yeah. I think that
things,
instinctively as a writer when you might be taking your reader like a little too far for them to believe something, so I think it's a gut thing with me. I know how far I can go in being super crazy, like but sometimes you miss it. I mean, for 48 States, you haven't read that book, but the main villain in that book is a foul-mouthed corporate CEO who insults everybody and tries to overthrow the government. And I had
cool.
a couple of reviews from people who said that villain is unbelievable. And I was like, what?
Have you turned on the news lately?
So you never know. I mean, everybody's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I do like playing around with all of these scenarios and sort of asking yourself what would happen. But I think on the other hand, once you give a character certain powers or you set the reader up in a certain way, you have to be careful not to go
Yeah.
completely off,
Keep the
because
integrity.
that's right. They're
Yeah.
expecting certain things and you don't want to completely, whipsaw them. So, and that's part of the challenge of a trilogy also, is going back and making sure that you have consistency in the way you move your characters through these different books.
Yeah, it's suddenly, and like they have to keep, yeah, they look like this, so you cannot change them down here unless they had plastic surgery, which,
That's right.
yes. I mean,
Exactly.
when did all that start anyway? Like, I mean, it's weird because now we're seeing all these people walk around that don't look like themselves
They look
anymore.
completely
That's like
different.
a whole, it looks like they come from a different planet. Like I mean it.
Yeah, I
It
do.
does not look human. So then we look at him and we're like, you are part alien deep down. Maybe. Like, I mean, why not? Don't you think we could have other beings living amongst us now and have been there for gazillions of years since dinosaur times? I mean, come on.
I'm open to any possibility, particularly since we can't travel very far in space ourselves. So we don't really know what's on the other side. And I think that absence of being able to shut the door means that you should open your mind to anything that's possible,
Mhm.
right?
When you're writing, do you get the giggles of some of the scenarios that you're writing and the characters doing things? Do you get it, kind of
Yes.
get the chuckle and go, this is cool?
I do. I do. I just had it the other night when I was working on the third book. So I'm in the middle of finishing the third book. I have like a pretty decent first draft and I'm trying to make a second draft and get it off to my editor. And there were some parts in there where I laughed and I said, I'm having a good time with this. This is good.
Oh, that's cool.
So, I think the second book in the trilogy is much darker than the first one. They leave the country, they go overseas to do some things. And it's a much darker time, but I think you also see the characters kind of bond together in a way that
Mm.
opens up, the story nicely for the third book. So I'm
Mm.
excited. And I really like the covers. My publisher has
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gone, you get these gorgeous views of cities. So I'm just having the best time ever.
That is
Getting
so cool.
launch this.
How do you balance writing and, working, having a career, and then writing and making it all happen, especially with a trilogy, because that's like a big, bite. That isn't just,
Yeah.
a weekend thing.
I mean, it's hard. I sometimes, stay behind when my, people go out and do fun things. I don't watch a lot of television. I'm missing out on some serious binging on Hulu and Netflix, because usually what happens is I work a full day, I come home. My daughter's in college, so I don't have to
Okay.
worry so much about like a younger child. But I've been writing for a while. So but I come up at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night after I finish dinner, and I write. And I write for, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours. I write on weekends. I've written on a lot of vacations when everybody else was skiing. But there sort of is a kind of a rule. You want to be a writer, you got to put your butt in a chair. I mean, there's no two
Yeah.
ways about it. So, and for me, I mean, I think I started this conversation by saying like keeping busy is a way I keep happy. For me, writing is really an integral part of who I am. If I'm not being creative and writing, at least for some part of the day, I don't feel like myself. So
Mm-mm.
I got to do this in order to kind of feel alive. And I started writing because most political consultants and PR people are men, and they always relieve their stress by eating too much, drinking too much, or other things you shouldn't be doing. And I really wanted to have a creative outlet that put my energy and my stress into something that would
Be
create.
positive.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
before starting this company, I had been a newspaper journalist, and I had been a member of a press secretary for a member of Congress. So I've had a long life of working in either politics or writing. Public affairs kind of combines them. And then that professional observation, these changes in politics, things getting more extreme. I was a young aide on the Hill when the Democrats lost the majority. After like 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
I saw the first wave of the changes in politics, the arrival of cable TV, and then the internet. And without choosing sides or talking about parties, the extreme way we communicate with each other is super dangerous to our civilization and our society, because when you can't find common ground to talk to somebody and learn about their perspective, you really have a big problem on your hands.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so these books are also a way for me to raise the alarm bell and talk a little bit about the extreme behavior in politics on all sides, and how much it hinders our ability to take care of each other, to talk to one another, and to get to know more about each other. And post pandemic, like, it's even worse, because most of us are just got our phones in our faces, and we're really not, we're not doing what you and I are doing, which is having a great animated conversation.
Well, yeah, the social media thing. I mean, if I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to, you know what I mean? It's
Totally.
and there's good parts of it. There are good parts, there are good things. But it's weird to me. It's a conversation. I mean, our whole business now runs around this, and we come from the print bag. Our magazine was print.
Right.
We started 27 years ago here, and Nancy, my mom, started it in South Africa. And she had like one of the first computers that printed film, and it was insane. I mean, and we had to fly people in from Johannesburg to fix a computer. Now we have people over your computer that can fix your computer. Like, it's so weird,
Right.
to this evolution. But the more we have, I think books are crucial to just sit and have that time for yourself and time to think. And no one can make you read fast or slow. You can go at your own pace. You can reread it if you want. You know what I mean? It's kind of a forced personal time that I think people actually need, because I think we're gluttons for punishment in what we've done in society, of how much we have to have. We know we need to make this to have this, and then we're going to add this, and then are we having quality of life? Doing what you love, what you're writing, is quality of life to me. That's
Yeah. I
it's
completely agree
everything.
with you. I really agree. I
It's
think
but you got to have so
reading,
much people skills, like everything, all the politics and stuff. You have got to see so much to add into your books,
yeah,
like politicians doing. You come on.
I
It's
have.
you.
And there are definitely people who have stopped me on the street and said, like, I know I'm a character in your book. And I'm like, you're not that interesting. But, everything is, I think what they are is amalgamations. They're
Mhm.
collections. But, the thing that reading allows you to do that social media doesn't is it allows your brain to just work in a linear, it's like listening to a record from beginning to end, right? We're showing our age a little here, but it's allowing your brain to hold on to one thing and to do it continuously versus always just having a little tiny snippet and never ever stopping. And there's really no way to have a good thought pattern, a sustainable thought pattern, when you shift and change everything every 10 seconds. And you can see this in younger generations. We give writing tests for people to work at my office, and people can't write anymore. They're used to typing and, IMHO and a happy face emoji or whatever.
Yeah, I can't handwrite. I used to be able to do cursive and all of that from school, was even when I was in a convent once, and, they whacked your knuckles and I'm still like going, it was you nuns who did this to my hands. But thank God it was only a year or something. But the handwriting is it's really weird because I have to really concentrate to handwrite.
Right.
Like I actually have to tell myself, slow down. You're just like a doctor now. Like you can't read it. And I go like, our brains are going so fast, and I feel like we're living in a casino machine. Going ding, 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 all these triggers. It's kind of, I don't, I like going into the other worlds. Let's do that with the others.
Well, I write all my novels longhand, and then I type them into the computer when I'm ready. So I have tons of notebooks, and, I find pictures and news articles and I tape them in, and I keep, I have boxes for each of these books, and I have all of it. And I use a notebook for my work as well. I mean, I don't take notes on computers and I don't take notes on my phone. I write them down, and I think that I remember them more. When I'm gone, that might end, but I'm still keeping Moleskine in business for now. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you know what? I have to do that for our schedule, our day timer and everything. I do not do an online calendar. I can't. Yeah. It's annoying. Number one, I don't want to hear the ding dings on my computer. It's the only sound that should come out of a computer is doing a Zoom thing for a podcast, or a podcast for video production work, or music. I don't want to hear anything else. I don't want dings. Good. No dings.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you've got a trilogy coming out, and so people can follow up and go into it. I wonder if people are going to reread a book once they get the second one,
I hope so. I really
think that'd be cool. Yeah. Are you going to do a book tour or like a book club kind of thing?
I have a launch party coming up in September at the San Francisco Main Library. There's a literary festival called Litquake. I'm on the board of a literary festival, but I'm doing a panel with other sci-fi and fantasy writers in October. And then I think I'm going to do something in Sun Valley, Idaho, where I have a vacation home. So short answer, not really a tour, but I'm pretty much open to, visiting bookstores when I'm in the area. And I don't think I'm quite, I haven't made it to that writer level where I'm being invited out on tour, but let's keep our fingers crossed that will change over time. But, cool. I'm open to being anywhere and participating in anything, because I think I love meeting my readers, and I love having conversations like this and getting to know people.
This is fun. Yeah, this is fun. So, okay, so it comes out in September, right? So everyone go pre-order. We like this. So I'm guessing that it is available in paperback, right? Too, an actual hardcore book, like a book.
It is available.
I have a feeling you would
paperback, and all libraries, all bookstores, and all the usual places. And you can check my website, and it's up now on Amazon as a pre-order, and I see that Simon & Schuster's got it up on their website. So very exciting.
That is cool. So do you ever see it going into an audiobook?
I hope it will. And I actually just heard that maybe somebody wants to see about doing some foreign rights to have it translated for, and because the book involves characters from all over the world, and there's some French being spoken, and there's some people from Croatia and Serbia. And so it's got kind of an international flavor. And in fact, the second book a lot of it will take place in Eastern Europe, where there's a lot more mysticism, and we'll get into tarot card readings. And then by the third one, we'll start working with some voodoo. So there's all sorts of things going on.
Delicious. This is delicious. Yeah, I like this.
There's no acid, but so in this, the others, Olivia will drink peyote, and then by the end of it, she'll take mushrooms and go on a vision quest. So there's just a lot of mind.
So how's the research on that?
Well, I have never taken peyote. That seems a little too intense for me, but I mean, this is San Francisco. We for sure dabble in mushrooms out here. So
I know, and I know your area very well. That's what I was
yeah.
gonna say. But I love that, the audiobook thing would be really cool, but the global feel of it is it's interesting because it's fluid in the time thing, that kind of yet now. It's a very interesting vibe that the whole book had. Like
Oh,
it's cool. So
I'm so
I
glad
haven't
to hear you
finished it.
say that.
I'm at the beginning. So, but I'm like, damn, this is fun. So this
Good.
is good. I'm excited for you with this. So it's
Well, thank
cool.
you. Keep me posted and, let me know what you think. I've really
Yeah.
this conversation. It's been a really fun way to spend my afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been fun. And before you go, I have a question.
Sure.
If you could go anywhere in time and give the book to someone, a woman,
Oh,
that
wow.
you wanted her to read it, and you feel like it's important that she reads it, who would it be?
Oh my gosh.
I know I suck,
I know that is really hard.
but it is pretty
Wow.
cool, when you think about it.
Yeah. I guess it's hard for me to pick one sort of pivotal person, but I guess if I were
I
going
didn't
to
say
go back
who.
in time, I would go back to a time when women, couldn't work or didn't have agency on their own. And I would tell them that, this is what the future holds, that women will have jobs, they will be powerful, they will direct campaigns and tell men what to do and have their own money. So I probably, pre-suffragette, some point in time. um, I always wanted to give these books to like Hillary Clinton or Madeleine Albright or, people who that are kind of my personal heroes. Because if you think about when they
Mhm.
started in politics and when they started doing, what they were doing, um, there weren't that many. And it's still very hard to think of women leaders. And, now in this day and age, there aren't as many as there were even pre-pandemic when, you had the head of Germany was headed by
Mhm.
Angela Merkel. Hillary Clinton was I mean, we just don't have that many women leaders right now. They don't fill the boardrooms, and there seems to be kind of even a retreat. So, I
Yeah.
can't think of a specific famous person, but I sometimes think you have to remind even women of our generation that, you have agency, you have power, you get to make decisions.
And use it, otherwise it goes away. That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I actually had somebody tell me they weren't going to vote in this election cycle, and
Oh
I said,
no.
yeah, you are.
Yeah, yeah. Right. No, no, it's so crucial. I mean, it's women. Yeah, yeah. No, we have to. This is not the year to put our head in the sand.
Yeah. And,
We have to.
Molly Ivins, who was a very well-known political columnist in Texas, she died, but she used to say, we don't vote for president for ourselves, we vote for other people who need our help. And I've always thought about that as my
That's
obligation
really, that's pretty
because
cool.
I live in California. I don't ever have to worry about having access to birth control or abortion or prenatal care or even health care. But there are a whole host of women in other states that even now don't. And so when I vote for president, I think about people who need my help. And it's the same reason why I support public libraries. I can buy books all day long, but for
Yeah.
people who can't, who need access to information, that's our job. Our job is to pay it forward and to take care of other people. So, and that's a little
Libraries
bit
are
about,
crucial.
yeah,
Libraries
that's
are crucial.
that's what the council is about and the others. It's about a group of people who have power, magical power, who realize that they have to save humanity from itself. And
Yeah,
that's a
that's
great
that
justified
sounds
goal.
about right. I
Exactly.
mean, but it really, but the library part, I mean, it's even looking at banned books. What the hell? And then
Yeah,
changing books because we don't like what's inside them.
that's right.
That's wrong too. It's we're destroying history. And I'm touchy about the whole thing with sculptures coming down and statues. I think we should be telling the truth on the statue. Someone made that art, whether it's wrong,
Yeah,
like it's we don't need to bow down to slave owners and things like that. But what we should be doing is telling the good, bad, the ugly.
I agree with you.
You know,
I went to a private women's college in Oakland where people, didn't want to study Hemingway because he was a misogynist. And I said, how about if we read him and then we can talk about what a jerk we thought he was? Like, we don't have to do one or the other. We're capable of having tough topics, tough subjects, and looking at things. Yeah, I mean, I think editing Dr. Seuss, it's like, why do you have to go back now and make make their viewpoint contemporary. Why don't you just talk about how we would never say that now,
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's it? The Swanee River guy too. He got in trouble. And I just went to a Dr. Seuss garden in Abilene, Texas, and they have a storytelling garden, and they got a giant flamingo, which I need to do a map of flamingos across the country because it seems to be a thing lately. But
okay.
they have all the Dr. Seuss characters in these gorgeous sculptures with nice sentiments and like parts of the books. I mean, it's like you're in this little magic land in the middle of this downtown Abilene, Texas. Who knew,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, do I post this? Are people going to get mad at me for Dr. Seuss? And I'm just like, okay, like no one's perfect. Humans pretty much can be complete jerks, right? And so, but if they do one good thing, we should go, okay, they did this good thing, but the rest of it sucks. Like Ted Nugent is a fantastic guitarist, but I don't like him because he kills animals. So that's just, but I have to go, but I don't listen to him because of that. But you know what I mean? There's a line.
I'll tell you a funny story about how you and I are connected to Ted Nugent. Years and years and years and years and years ago, when I was a 20-something aide to a member of Congress, my boss was helping the Democrats pass the assault weapons ban. And Ted Nugent called the office to speak to my member of Congress. And he said, he just asked to speak to her by her first name. And of course, I'm very diligent, like young public servant. I said, I'm sorry, sir, like, who is calling? May I ask who's calling? And he was like, this is Ted Nugent. And sure enough, he was calling to make sure they didn't ban crossbows, as a part of like whatever they were doing. So just to say, he's been at this for a while.
Yeah. I did just do an interview about with Carmine Appice. Did I say it correctly? The drummer with Rod Stewart and all that stuff. And he's got a new album and Ted Nugent's on there. And I'm talking about this one song and it's really good. And I'm like, yeah, and this Ted Nugent and this carries on about Ted Nugent. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. I didn't even know he was still
but it's really good. But... It's really good. But yeah, it's a good album. But the Temple of the Blues, everyone's a good album. But thanks so much. This has been fun. Now I feel like we should like play vinyl. We need to get an album out.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thanks so much for the invitation. And I look forward to talking to you another time. Take care.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep us posted. Everyone, EvetteDavis.com is the website. And of course, don't forget local bookstores. There's also places like bookshop.org. Just saying. All right. And a library. Yeah. Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio. Keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.